Good morning. I'm attorney Benjamin Crump, along with my wonderful co-counsel, who is a native of Pinellas County, whose family has deep origins in Pinellas County, Michelle Rayner. We have the honor of representing the family of Markeis McGlockton. Also with us is one of my law partners, Scott Carruthers, as well as Attorney Rayner's law partner, Kelly McCabe. We also have with us, and more importantly, the family and the voice of Markeis McGlockton. We have his mother, Miss Moore, and she's here dealing with this tragedy as they prepare for the funeral of Markeis McGlockton. And we have the father, Mr. Michael McGlockton, who lost his only child last Thursday in this tragedy as he protected his family. And we have Miss Brittany Jacobs, who you all saw in the video, who is the partner and the soulmate of Markeis McGlockton and the mother of his 3 children, Markeis Jr., Marley, and Marshawn, who was only 4 months old at the time of this tragedy. We are here to demand justice for the cold-blooded murder of Markeis McGlockton by the self-appointed wannabe cop, Michael Drinker. And that's what this was. Make no mistake about it. This was a cold-blooded murder that was witnessed firsthand by Brittany Jacobs and Markeis's 3 young children. Markeis Jr., who was 5 years old, Marley, his daughter, who was 3 years old, and Marshawn, his 4-month-old baby. They all saw it firsthand, and for the rest of their lives, they're going to have to deal with this unbelievable, traumatic episode of seeing their father gunned down in cold blood. And that's why we're here, united to demand justice. And this follows a long line of these alleged stand-your-ground murderers in the state of Florida. We know when we were all introduced to this stand-your-ground law with Trayvon Martin in Sanford, Florida. And then you had Corey Jones in West Palm Beach, Florida. Amen. And now you have Markeis McGlockton here in Pinellas County, Florida, where the individual is the initial aggressor, starts the confrontation, and then kills the unarmed black person and claims it's self-defense. It's still ludicrous how you can claim that you're in fear of your life, but yet you approach and start the confrontation with the individuals. And there are certainly some similarities to the Trayvon Martin tragedy. When you think about the fact that the killer and Trayvon was the initial aggressor, and the killer and Markeis McGlockton was the initial aggressor. They started the confrontation. If they would have called the police and let the police do their job, none of us would be here. In either scenario, they could have just let the police do their job. But these wannabe cops initiated the confrontation and shot and killed in cold blood these unarmed black men. And then they both were allowed to go home and sleep in their bed that night after killing unarmed black men. We have to say, no, this is not justice. We will not continue to let this epidemic of being able to confront and kill unarmed black people and then say, I was just standing my ground. It was just self-defense. So we have to speak to all the leaders here, to our NAACP leaders, Ms. White, to our governmental leaders, Mr. Sean Shaw, Senator Rouson. We have to speak to the Florida legislature, and we have to let them know clearly with a united voice that we can do better as a society. We don't have to solve all our problems by taking a gun out and shooting the person. That cannot be the solution in a moral society, in a humane society. We have to tell our Florida legislature, we understand that Florida has more gun right laws than any other state in America. But we have very little, if any, gun responsibility laws. And if you're not gonna do anything to amend Stand Your Ground, well, at least for God's sake, have the courage to say we want gun responsibility laws where you can't have these wannabe cops like Michael Drinker go confront a woman with her babies in the back seat of the car and then kill the father as he tries to protect this family. At least have the audacity to say that we as a legislature are going to speak to this obvious miscarriage of justice. And I'll say that there is enough evidence to the State Attorney Bernie McCabe. There is enough evidence in this case to charge this murderer with a crime. When you look at these facts, and you look at all the facts, Brittany Jacobs was in the car with her two babies in the back seat. A 3-year-old daughter, a 4-month-old son, and a strange man comes up to her car, cursing and screaming, pointing his finger through the window, and the father comes out to try to protect his family, protect his property. He should have the right to have stand your ground. Why doesn't he get the right to have stand your ground? And then after the killer is on the ground, he pulls the gun out. And you watch the video frame by frame. 4 seconds pass. 4 seconds pass when he takes that gun out and points it. Markeis takes 4 steps back and is turning to leave and retreat. There's a white gentleman in the video. You see, he turns and runs. He is not in fear of his life. He is not in fear. It is not reasonable for him to shoot and kill a person who is retreating. Ladies and gentlemen, in conclusion, because no doubt, Michelle, Ms. Moore, Mr. McGlockton, we have to speak truth to power. And we all know that race is a factor in this case. And just imagine if the roles were reversed and you had a black man approach a white woman sitting in the car with her 2 white toddler children in the back seat. And the white father came out to protect his family and shot this strange black man who approached their car. Does anyone doubt that he would have been arrested and taken to jail if he would not have been shot right there in the parking lot? So why is it different when there is an unarmed black person lying on the ground dead. We only want equal justice, nothing more or nothing less. At this time, you're going to hear from Attorney Rayner, and then you'll hear from Brittany, Miss Moore, and Mr. McGlockton. They are not lawyers. They did not ask to be here. It is very emotional for them. Please give them the respect that they so deserve dealing with this unbelievable tragedy. And we will take a few questions at the end of their presentation of what they want to share with you from their heart. Attorney Michelle Rayner was born here in Pinellas County. Her mother, Harriet Rayner, has been a stalwart in this county in the field of civil rights. We are very fortunate to have her, who has the knowledge of and history of Pinellas County, not only through her education, but through her DNA. I am very proud to stand here with Attorney Michelle Rayner and fight for justice for Markeis McGlockton. Ms. Rayner.
Thank you. So, as I have said so many times, you cannot provoke a fight and then hide behind stand your ground. Even the statute talks about that. Even the jury instruction talks about that. And I want to break it down just a little bit for you. When you even present a case like this to a jury, or if you're reading the statute, you have to have a reasonable fear that you're in imminent danger of losing your life or great bodily harm. You have to have a reasonable fear, not some subjective, but a reasonableness fear. And we've already said it. 1, 2, 3, 4. It took 4 seconds for Mr. Draka to make that decision, the conscious decision to murder Markeis McGlockton. And when you think about the imminent danger and the reasonableness that comes with it, one of the other things that you have to examine, that also the jury instruction talks about if you're resisting someone trying to commit a murder or someone resisting committing an applicable felony. But that did not happen here. So why is Michael Draka at home? Why did the sheriff say, well, it's really a toss-up? You could look at it either way. Why is this still not being investigated? Why does it have to say, well, we'll just let the state attorney deal with it and that'll be your mess to clean up? So that's why we're asking State Attorney Bernie McCabe, we're imploring him, we're demanding that there is justice. We're demanding that there is a full and thorough investigation. And we know that there are good lawyers in there because I deal with them, Ms. McCabe deals with them. We know that they are willing to prosecute. And this case should not be any different. They're willing to prosecute most cases. There's some lawyer friends I see out here shaking their head because we have dealt with them. And we know and we're confident that when they get these facts, things that are coming even to our attention, when they get these facts, and I don't even think you have to have any outside facts, you could just look at the video. Yeah. You could just really look at the video. We have a thing in the law, res ipsa loquitur. The thing speaks for itself. And it's speaking for itself. And we're demanding that there is justice. We're demanding that there are charges filed against Michael Draka and that he is taken into custody. Because you know who should be standing here today? Markeis McGlockton. But he's not. So his family has to speak for him today. Thank you.
And now we will hear from his father, Mr. Michael McGlockton, who lost his only child in this tragedy. Mr. McGlockton.
We are all here today because we're here for justice. We're here for justice. It was uncalled for murder. My son didn't deserve to die like this, period. As a man, when you have a son, first thing you do, you raise him up to be a man. First thing you want to do is to make sure that they're able to take care of their family when they grow up and become a man. You raise them to be men just so they can be the protectors of their own families. Unfortunately, that's all my son was doing, protecting his family. Any man out there would have did the exact same thing.
Amen.
If you push a man down to the ground, that man does not deserve to be shot. Stand up and fight with your fist. You don't shoot a man because a man pushes you to the ground. Again, just like the attorney said, look at the tape. Markeis was taking 2 to 3 steps back when that guy pulled that gun out. Mr. Draker, I don't even want to call him Mr. Draker, pulled his gun out. As you can see, when he pulled that gun out, Markeis was taking a couple steps back. Mr. Draker had full control of the situation right then and there. He had 4 seconds to think about it. He did not have to pull that trigger. Again, we are here because we want justice. Justice for Markeis McGlockton. Thank you.
And now we will hear from his mother, if she's up to it, Miss Monica Moore.
She's not.
Okay.
It's been a rough
She's still having to deal with preparing for the funeral to bury her child. Our last person we will hear from is Miss Brittany Jacobs, the mother of Markeis's 3 children and his partner since she was a high school student.
Wow. I'm still in shock how this white man, this stranger, came up to my car and harassed me and my babies, came cussing at me, came pointing his finger at me. And now I'm left, I'm left answering questions for my for my babies. And they asking me, where's their daddy? And I need answers because it's hard for me to even, say where where the father is right now. And we need justice.
Ladies and gentlemen, as Attorney Rayner said, this matter needs to be investigated fully. Also, the history of this wannabe cop, that he had a racist history of confronting black people at that store. So you have the video, you have the owner's testimony, and you have witnesses who were there. And thanks to Attorney Rayner's office, we have talked to those witnesses. And those witnesses tell a story that will complete this picture that this was not stand your ground, that this was a cold-blooded murder. And the murderer got to sleep in his bed that night very peacefully and calmly while Brittany Jacobs, Monica Moore, Michael McGlockton, and all of the family and friends of Markeis McGlockton have been completely devastated at this young man who was doing the right things, was being a responsible father, was raising his children, doing the things we want from young people in our society. And like his father said, simply because he tried to protect his family, he was gunned down, and in the most heartbreaking way, his children, especially 5-year-old Markeis, who when you watch the end of that video, reaches out for his father, and his father falls at his feet dead. And that's what Brittany is having to explain to her children. What happened? Why did the bad man shoot daddy? And that's what we're dealing with. And so we have to give her the answers, not only for her and the family, but for all of society, and help heal this community that is grieving this unimaginable loss. At this time, we will take some of your questions.
Mr. Crump, what action do you plan to take for this stand your ground law? Do you plan to go to the state attorney's office, make any kind of demand? What action do you plan to take here?
Certainly. Senator Darrell Roussan, who's a local senator from this community has already reached out. Mr. Sean Shaw is here with us, who's a candidate for Attorney General, as well as Ms. McWhite, the NAACP leadership. We plan on asking the legislature to consider the amendments to Stand Your Ground, that if you are the aggressor and it can be clearly shown that you are the aggressor, you should not get the benefit and the immunity of Stand Your Ground. You can't start a confrontation and kill somebody and say, oh, I was just standing my ground. Why did you start the confrontation in the first place? Why did this wannabe cop feel he could take the law into his own hands? And secondly, and I think more important, is the fact that we have to have gun responsibility laws.
Right.
We have all these gun rights laws. We have to have gun responsibility laws. Attorney Rayner and I, Attorney Scott Carruthers and I are going to engage more-minded society thinking legislators to say, let's do right. Let's try to protect the citizens of the state of Florida from this shoot first, ask questions later mentality.
Mr. Crump, we know that the burden of proof now shifted as a result of the change in the law from the defense proving Stand Your Ground to the prosecutors having to prove it. Does that provide a different barrier and a difficulty in proving this case if it moves through the court system? I'm
going to let Attorney Rayner answer that question, but I want you to know it's very clear. There's enough evidence here just by the video. Unfortunately, with Trayvon Martin, we didn't have video. In this case, there is video that clearly shows Mr. McGlockton was retreating. He was walking back. But Attorney Rayner does criminal defense work, and she's dealt with Stand Your Ground in her cases on many occasions. And I want her to answer your question and speak to normally how she has to deal with Stand Your Ground when she's representing black people.
So when you assert Stand Your Ground as a defense counsel, you have to make a prima facie case. It's one of the lowest barriers, one of the lowest burdens that we have. And then what happens is that the burden does shift to the state attorney or the prosecutor to, by clear and convincing evidence, to show that it was not a Stand Your Ground matter. And when the state attorney is able to do that, they're able to take propensity, they're able to take character evidence, they're able to take witness testimony. And I think in this case, even if, and we believe that Mr. McCabe is going to file charges. So when charges are filed and Mr. Draker hires counsel or counsel is appointed to him and Stand Your Ground defense is asserted, which we believe he will assert, the state attorney has more than enough in their arsenal to defeat a Stand Your Ground motion and a Stand Your Ground a defense.
And to that
Say
point,
about, hold just one second. One of the things Michelle shared with me that I thought was riveting, because you cannot neglect the fact that Stand Your Ground is being applied in a racist, calculated manner in many instances. When her clients choose to assert Stand Your Ground, unfortunately, these black people have already been arrested. They're in jail telling their counsel, I was standing my ground. But unfortunately, when it's a black person who's shot, normally the cops let them go home from the scene of the crime. We have to speak to that. We have to say that this inequity and justice is not constitutional. It's not right for the police to arbitrarily say whatever the white person said who killed the black person, we're gonna take that as factual. But when a black person says that at the scene, they're still arrested, charged, and taken to jail. So we have to use this as a teachable moment and make sure the legacy of Markeis McGlockton is something that his children can know their father did not die in vain.
That's right.
and the other question I was going to ask to that point, and maybe Michelle or you
Yes, sir.
can speak to this, there is a new barrier in the law, whereas if the police arrest somebody, or in this case the sheriff's department
Ms. McCabe
arrests
can speak to
somebody,
that.
they can be held civilly liable if the prosecutor determines or the state attorney determines that it's not Stand Your Ground. Do you think that that's part of a reticence as to why Mr. Draker has not been arrested?
I can let Ms. McCabe speak to that.
I'll let co-counsel Attorney McCabe speak to that. We have a team effort. Ms. McKay?
I think that's definitely one of the barriers. I think that, but that barrier has always been there with Stand Your Ground. So I think the added on barrier, that the shift in burden, is what's truly causing, I guess, them to hesitate in arresting somebody who is asserting Stand Your Ground. They've always had this, open to litigation if somebody prevails in a Stand Your Ground case. But now that it has shifted where the state attorney has the burden of proving that it's not a Stand Your Ground case, I think those two coupled together is what's giving them hesitation in arresting someone, or arresting in this case, I should say. But this is not a Stand Your Ground case. The person who had Stand Your Ground was our client, Markeis McGlockton.
In your experience, what type of timeline could we expect for a decision from the state attorney's office? I know obviously you don't speak for them, but just in dealing with them in the past, how quickly would you expect a decision?
It could be any time. I mean,
It could be tomorrow.
It could be tomorrow. It could be 2 months from now. It could be 6 months from now. However, with dealing with this office, normally, we could expect, if they've given all the evidence and given all the reports, and they start their investigation, it can be pretty quickly. However, I do believe that they are very careful, as in a lot of my cases, they will build their case, and I believe, especially in this case, I'm confident that they're going to build a case against Michael Draco.
Yeah, I want to make sure you talk to the mic. I will say this here, and we'll take one or two more questions. All we want is State Attorney Bernie McCabe's office to do to the shooter of Markeis McGlockton what he would do if the roles were reversed. We want nothing more or nothing less. Simple justice is all this family seeks. Nothing more, nothing less. Two more questions, and then.
Funeral arrangements been made?
Yes, ma'am. Miss Monica and Mr. Michael McGlockton have the funeral set for Saturday morning at 11 a.m.
At Shiloh Baptist Missionary Church in Largo.
And please know that they are completely heartbroken over the loss of their child. And so try to be respectful to them at the homegoing services. Yes, ma'am.
As a biracial, I have a question. Do you think that when that man walked up to your car, that his motive was to kill somebody?
What we say to you, ma'am, and we appreciate you being here because you represent the future. Look at his history. Listen to what the owner said, that this man had a propensity to confront African Americans at that store, and that he had trouble with him in the past. And we would hope that the state attorney and the law enforcement officers who are investigating this matter will look into those measures as well at his history. We thank you for being here today. There will be the homegoing services, and I know the community is planning many other events to stand up for justice for Markeis McGlockton, and people from the community will get an opportunity to speak at those events. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
There'll be a pool camera allowed.
We'll release those details.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you.